Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to the Concession Stand, brought to you by the KB Radio Network. I am Kevin Reed, and this is my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which drops in theaters August the 2nd. How are we doing, everybody? I hope everybody is doing well. I am happy because I got to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I got to see a piece of my childhood yet again. This is a summer full of nostalgia. And this was another piece of nostalgia, but this go around, this is coming from Seth Rogen, who is who's a permanent teenager, as they promoted for this film. Seth Rogen, who brought us Knocked Up and the Green Hornet film and countless other comedies. This Is the End and all this. Seth Rogen is a beast. And so when he was announced to be taking over this Ninja Turtle franchise, I was excited for a lot of reasons. Number one, recently Seth Rogen has dove into animation and comic book properties. He started with Preacher, that was on AMC, I believe, and then his shows that popped up on Amazon Prime. We have Invincible, which is an amazing show. That first season of Invincible was just chef's kiss. The Boys that he was involved with, he's also executive producer of that. So he's been knocking it out the park as a producer as of late. And so I was encouraged when he was attached to this project. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is directed by Jeff Rowe, and it is co-written by Seth Rogen, Ian Goldberg, Jeff Rowe, Dan Hernandez, and Benji Salmon. The voice talent. This was another draw. The voice talents were teenagers. These were actual teenagers, which is for the first time of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle lore that we actually had teenagers provide the voice of these teenage characters. You have Micah Abbott, who provided the voice of Donatello, Shamon Brown Jr. as Michelangelo, Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo, and Brady Noon as Raphael. Joining them in this stacked voice cast, you have Hannibal Buress as Genghis Frog, Rose Byrne as Leatherhead, John Cena as Rocksteady, Jackie Chan as Splinter, the great Ice Cube as Superfly, John Carlos Exposito as Braxton Stockman, Seth Rogen as Bebop. You have Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko, as well as Maya Rudolph. This is an awesome movie. I must say, I enjoyed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. If you're a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles franchise, going all the way back to the 80s, with the animated series, buying the toys, watching the live action movie that came out in what that was, 80, early 90s, 80s. I can't remember when the original live action film came out, but they had two sequels to that film. And you, like me, went to the theater to watch them all, and all of the reboots that was on Nickelodeon, they must have had about 4 or 5 different versions of the Ninja Turtles that came out. And as well as this updated Michael Bay Ninja Turtle films that came out, about 7-8 years ago, that weren't too well received. They were all right. They weren't the greatest things on earth, but you watched them because you love these characters. This go around, I can honestly say right off the bat, this was the best adaptation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. for a number of reasons, which I'm going to go over. But the premise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, after years of being sheltered from the human world, the four turtle brothers set out on a quest to be accepted as normal teenagers by the people of New York City through acts of heroism. With the aid of their new friend, April O'Neil, the brothers go on a hunt for a mysterious crime syndicate. But trouble arises when an army of mutants is unleashed upon them. Uh, let's start off with this voice cast. The voice cast here, perfectly cast. The four young men that they chose to voice the turtles were perfect. Never did I think, these are certain things, like for the average moviegoer, you don't care who's voicing the character or how old that character is or how old that person who is portraying the character is, should I say. That's not in your mind. You just want to see the the show or the movie. And I never thought that they never had actual teenagers provide the voice. This go around when we get actual teenagers providing these voices, it added something to it. It added to the authentic feel of them being teenagers. The way they talked, the chemistry they had with each other. Doing a little background check on the making of this film. Normally when they do voice over work, they have the actor in the booth just recite their lines by themselves and whatnot. This go around, and it isn't a real rarity because they do banter off of each other on different, cartoons and animated series, but they decided to do it here. Have the four actors in the room together as they recited their lines so they can get a chemistry, so they can feed off of each other. And you felt it through this film. It was moments in this film, I forgot it was animated. It felt real, and their brotherhood felt real. You felt the love from them. You felt the sarcasm. The jokes were landing with one another. It just flowed perfectly. Hats off to those four young men. The other voice cast who are supporting these four young fellers in this film, an all-star supporting cast, which is awesome. Because nobody knows. I know a couple of the young men who provided the voice of the turtles. I know one of them voices a character on a animated show that me and my daughter watch, The Amazing World of Gumball, and he provides the voice on there. I think he's the voice of Gumball, and I know that much. But the average moviegoer don't know these young men. But when it comes to the supporting cast, majority of the world know who Jackie Chan is. They know who Ice Cube is. They know who John Cena is. They know who Giancarlo Esposito is. Post Malone, Seth Rogen, Paul Rudd. You know all these characters, but they had small roles, but it was impactful. All of them were good. They did the job. No more, no less. Nobody really blew up, with the exception of two, and that is Jackie Chan as Splinter and Ice Cube as Superfly. Starting with Jackie Chan. I hate to say this because he is amazing in everything, but it was like he was born to play Splinter. He was born for this role. He was Splinter. He was everything that I Splinter is not a character that I sit there and be like, oh man, I hope they get Splinter right. Nobody cares. You go to see Ninja Turtles for the turtles. Splinter is just Splinter. But I loved Jackie Chan in this role. And this is non-spoilers, of course. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but the scene, his fight scene, was Jackie Chan fight scene. Everything that he was doing was you can visualize Jackie Chan doing it. And I thought that was the most awesome nod to Jackie Chan you could ever get. Beautiful job there. But the movie stiller here is Ice Cube. Ice Cube with his, oh man, it was just, he is Superfly. He's a he was so cool as that character. He was funny, you know. He was menacing. He had, I mean, he just had it. I mean, it's Ice Cube, baby. You know, I loved it. I loved it. All the rest of them were good as well. The story, moving on to the story, the plot was great. I think this was a smart way to reboot this franchise, because this is a reboot. This is a origin. We get the origins of the turtles and whatnot, but not to the point where we see them become turtles. We just get the backstory. And I love the story that was told. I love the fact that they are sheltered and they long to be a part of the world. They want to be looked upon as just everybody else, you know, normal teenagers, you know, and it showcased the anxiety a teenager has, rather not just being a turtle, but just being a teenager, you know, fitting in and wanting to be accepted. All that was beautifully showcased through the eyes of turtles. But if you remember, if you if you have the if you're not too far removed from being a teenager, and you can look back through your teenage years, you can see yourself in these turtles. You see yourself like, oh man, I hope people like me and stuff like that. You know how it was in high school. My God, those were brutal times. And this is what they were going through. They just wanted to be accepted. And when April O'Neil came in, I thought that was a nice way to introduce her character as well. She connected with the turtles because she was going through the exact same thing that they were going through. Yeah, she wasn't green and had a half shell, but she emotionally are connected to the turtles. The animation style. First time I saw the trailer, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this animation style. But my mind quickly went back to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the first of that franchise that featured Miles Morales. And I said the exact same thing. And when I saw it, I was blown away by that animation. Same thing here. This animation style is different. It's a little jarring at first when you see it. The way the characters are drawn, the way the landscapes are drawn, everything looks weird. It looks like a comic book panel in a sense. You know, it was just weird the way the characters looked. But it fit the movie. It fit the story that was being told. And I would say about 5 minutes in, I didn't even notice the style. 5 minutes in, I forgot it was animated. Like I said before, it felt so authentic. It's so real. I didn't care. Didn't care how, you know, the faces were drawn on the human characters, certain human characters. You know, every character had their own kind of style, you know, their own like animation style, so to speak. Something like Into the Spider-Verse, or even Across the Spider-Verse, you know, how every character had their own different animation style. It wasn't to that degree. It wasn't that detailed as it was in Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse, but it still set itself apart. It did a real good job of setting every character apart. Even the four turtles, you know, they had subtle little differences that was showcased through the animation. Beautiful job there. Moving on to my negatives, and I only really have one negative, but it's a big one. It's a big one. It's enough to where I was like, oh, you know, I was really upset by it. And it's the third act. The third act of this film kind of came apart, because before that, the first two acts of this film, I was sitting there thinking like, man, this might be the best animated film of the year. And I know Across the Spider-Verse came out this year, And you know how much I loved Across the Spider-Verse. But the first two acts of this film had me thinking for a few minutes. Like, man, this is better than Spider-Verse. This was this was that good. And then the third act happened. And I was, oh my God, they almost had it. You was right there. You was right there. It just the thing about that third act, it worked. It worked. It just didn't come together right. It was kind of like thrown together, that last half of the film, the climax of this film, and it just didn't pay off. It was a satisfying ending, don't get me wrong. Nothing, left open the door. It wasn't ambiguous ending and all this other stuff. Nothing like that. It was just the way it all came together was kind of messy, and everything else was done so well. So I sit back and I'm like, why did it end like this? Why is the film going like this? To get to the climax, it just kind of broke apart. I'm talking story, action, all that. It kind of broke apart, and it was very frustrating because I was cheering for this movie. I was cheering for it to be great, and it kind of dropped the ball at the 1 yard line before it crossed into the end zone. But that doesn't stop the fact this was an awesome film. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem gets a letter grade of a B+. Super good time in the theater watching this film. It was a enjoyable, funny, exciting film. Third act a little murky, but overall awesome movie, and it's worth a view. Go check out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, available in theaters this Wednesday, August the 2nd. I would like to know, are you planning to check out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem in the theaters, and how did you come about with the Turtles? Did you discover them when you was younger like myself, or did you get into them because your kids were into them, or are you just not interested in turtles? In the Ninja Turtles, should I say? I would like to know. You can email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can look us up on all social media platforms. Just look up the KB Radio Network. That includes YouTube. Don't forget about the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. Subscribe and like this video. Please, ma'am. Please, sir. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of this animated good time Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everybody, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.